The night was cold, and the wind carried dust across the empty road. The world was quiet after years of war, but the scars of battles were still written on every broken wall and ruined house. In the middle of this silence, a boy walked slowly. His steps weak, his body thin like dry wood. He was not a human boy. His skin was pale blue, his eyes glowing faintly in the dark, and his small hands were trembling. For 7 days, he had not eaten. Every night he searched through the ruins for something, anything, to fill his stomach. He had found nothing but broken machines and ashes of old fires. Hunger was burning inside him like a flame, and his legs were about to collapse. Far ahead, he saw a light. It was coming from a small wooden shelter where a human family lived. The boy froze, his heart beating fast. He had heard that humans hated his kind, because his people once came as invaders. But now he was alone, starving, and had no choice. He moved closer, hiding behind a fallen tree. Through the broken window, he could see a family sitting together. A father with tired eyes, a mother holding her youngest child, and 2 more children sharing a piece of bread. The smell of food reached him, sharp and sweet, and his stomach cried with pain. He whispered to himself in a broken voice, "Just one bite, just one bite." But fear held him back. If they saw him, they might scream. They might chase him away, or worse, call the soldiers. His glowing eyes flickered with both hope and terror. Inside the shelter, the mother looked. Out by chance, her eyes caught a small figure in the shadows. At first, she thought it was a wild animal, but then she noticed the trembling shape, the eyes that glowed like fading stars. Her heart tightened. "He was only a child," she whispered. To her husband, "There's someone outside, watching us." The father frowned, walked to the window, and saw the boy. His jaw tightened, memories of the war rushing into his mind. "Not one of them," he muttered. "Not here." But the mother placed her hand on his arm. "Look at him," she said softly. "He is starving. He is just a boy." The father struggled, his face hard like stone. He remembered friends lost in battle. He remembered flames falling from alien ships. But when he looked again at the boy, he saw nothing but weakness and fear. The alien boy stepped back, his legs shaking. He thought they would throw stones at him or close the door. But the mother did something unexpected. She took a small piece of bread from the table, walked slowly to the door, and stepped outside. The boy froze, ready to run. Her gentle voice broke the silence. "Are you hungry?" He could not understand every word, but the sound was kind. The smell of bread reached him again, and his empty stomach pulled him forward. He took one step, then another. The mother knelt and held out the bread with her open hand. The boy's eyes filled with tears as he reached out slowly. When the warm bread touched his lips, he ate with desperation, chewing fast, his throat shaking with sobs. The children inside watched with wide eyes. They whispered, "He's just a child. He's not dangerous." But the father remained silent, his hand resting on the old rifle near the door. His heart was torn between fear and pity. The boy finished the bread and looked up for the first time. His glowing eyes carried a spark of life. He whispered in broken human words, "Thank you." The mother smiled gently, though her heart was heavy with worry. The father sighed deeply, his shoulders dropping. "We cannot keep him," he said. "They will come looking, and if they find him here, we will all pay the price." But even as he spoke, he could not ignore the way the boy's thin hands clutched at the empty air, begging for another chance to live. That night, the storm grew stronger, thunder shaking the sky. The boy curled up near the shelter's wall, refusing to leave, though he was too afraid to enter. Inside, the mother could not sleep. She kept watching the window, her thoughts burning. A question kept repeating in her mind. Was this boy truly their enemy? Or was he a child abandoned by fate? The father stayed awake as well, staring at the shadows. He knew the decision they made tonight could change everything. Outside, the alien boy closed his eyes, his body weak but his heart still holding a small light of hope. For the first time in many days, he whispered to himself, "Maybe tomorrow," and then drifted into a fragile sleep. The morning sun rose slowly, painting the ruined land with a pale light. The alien boy was still curled outside the shelter wall, his body weak, his face tired but peaceful after a rare night of sleep. Inside, the human family sat in silence, the air heavy with unspoken fear. The father broke the silence first, his voice firm. "He cannot stay. If anyone sees him, the soldiers will come, and we will be punished." The mother looked at her children, their young eyes filled with questions. And then she whispered, "But he is only a child. He will die if we send him away." The father's hands clenched around the wooden table, his heart full of anger and pain. He remembered the war, the nights when alien ships filled the sky with fire, the screams of neighbors, the ruins left behind. To him, that boy carried the face of an enemy, even if small and innocent. The children leaned closer to the window, watching the boy move weakly in the dust. "He looks like us when we are hungry," the eldest child said softly, "only his skin is different." The younger daughter added, "He smiled when Mama gave him bread. He is not dangerous." The father shook his head, but his heart felt heavy. The children's words planted doubt inside him. The mother stood and took a small bowl of water, her step steady as she opened the door. The boy lifted his head weakly, his glowing eyes blinking in the sunlight. When the bowl touched his hands, he hesitated, then drank fast, the water dripping down his face. The mother knelt beside him, brushing dust from his hair gently. "What is your name?" she asked, though she knew he might not answer. The boy whispered something broken, a sound like "Re." "Anne," then lowered his head, ashamed of his weakness. Inside, the father watched with mixed feelings. Every part of him wanted to close the door, to end this before it was too late. But when he saw the boy struggling to hold the bowl, his thin arms trembling, the father felt a crack in his stone heart. Still, his voice was sharp. One night was mercy, but more than that is danger. That evening, neighbors passed by the shelter. They spoke in hushed tones, eyes sharp, searching for signs of anything unusual. The father quickly told his children to stay quiet. The boy hid behind a pile of wood, his glowing eyes dimmed in fear. The neighbors did not notice him, but their suspicion lingered in the air like smoke. When the neighbors left, the father closed the door tightly, his face pale. "They will come again," he warned, "and if they discover him here, we will all be taken." The mother placed her hand on his arm again, her voice trembling. "And if we send him away, he will not survive the night." Her words echoed through the shelter, leaving only silence behind. Later, the children carried a small blanket and laid it near the boy. He touched it carefully, as if it were treasure. He lay down, covering himself, his glowing eyes softening with gratitude. For the first time in days, he felt warmth, not from fire, but from kindness. That night, the storm outside returned, wind howling, trees bending. The family sat together, but their thoughts were with the boy. The father paced the room, his mind torn in two. One side shouted of danger, of the risk of soldiers and betrayal. The other side whispered of humanity, of compassion, of what it meant to be different from those who brought only destruction. When he finally stopped, he looked at his wife, then at his children. He knew the choice was not only his, but theirs as well. The mother's eyes pleaded without words. The children's faces were bright with quiet hope. The father sighed, his voice heavy. "If we do this, there is no turning back." He stepped outside into the cold night and looked at the alien boy sleeping against the wall. For a long moment he simply stood, watching the boy breathe, watching his small chest rise and fall. The father whispered to himself, "Enemy or not, he is only a child." And then, without fully admitting it, his choice was made. He carried the boy inside the shelter, laying him near the fire. The boy stirred, opening his glowing eyes wide in shock. The children smiled. The mother's eyes filled with tears, and even the father, though silent, felt a strange calm. The boy whispered again in broken words, "Safe. Here." The father looked at him for a long time, then gave the smallest nod. Outside, the storm roared louder, but inside, the shelter was warm. And though danger still surrounded them, something new had entered their lives, not just fear, not just risk, but also hope. The family did not know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight they had chosen humanity, and that choice changed everything. The next morning was quiet. The storm had passed, leaving the ground wet and the air heavy with the smell of rain. Inside the shelter, the alien boy opened his eyes slowly, the warmth of the fire touching his skin. For a moment he forgot where he was, but then he saw the human family around him, and fear returned to his heart. The father was sitting near the door, his hand resting close to the rifle, watching carefully. The mother prepared simple food, while the children whispered to each other, their eyes filled with curiosity. The boy sat up weakly, clutching the blanket as if it was his only shield. He expected shouting or anger, but none came, only silence and cautious eyes. The mother placed a small bowl of soup in front of him, steam rising slowly. Her voice was gentle. "Eat." The boy hesitated, his glowing eyes shifting from her face to the father's hard stare. Finally, he lifted the bowl with trembling hands, sipping quickly, every drop filling his empty stomach like treasure. The children giggled softly, amazed at how fast he ate. The youngest child reached out with a piece of bread, offering it to him. The boy looked at the bread, then at her small smiling face, and for the first time, his lips curved in a shy smile. He accepted it carefully, as if afraid it might vanish, and whispered again in broken words, "Thank you." The father looked away, pretending not to notice, but deep inside, his anger was fading little by little. This was not a monster, not a soldier, but only a boy, hungry and lost. As days passed, the bond grew slowly. The children began to play near him, showing him small toys made from broken wood and stones. At first he only watched silently, his glowing eyes following every movement. Then one day, when the eldest boy rolled a carved wooden ball toward him, the alien boy touched it, rolled it back, and the children cheered. The sound of laughter filled the shelter, a sound that had been rare since the war. The alien boy learned small human words, repeating them in a strange accent. Water, friend, safe. The children clapped whenever he succeeded, and he smiled shyly, a spark of joy breaking through his fear. At night, however, the fear always returned. The boy often woke screaming softly, his glowing eyes wide with terror. The mother would sit beside him, calming him until he slept again. Sometimes he whispered strange names in his sleep, names of people who were gone, names from a world that no longer existed. One evening, while the family ate, neighbors passed by again, their eyes sharp. The father quickly told the alien boy to stay hidden in the dark corner, his glowing eyes covered with a piece of cloth. The neighbors asked questions. "We heard strange sounds last night. Is everything all right here?" The father's voice was calm, though his heart raced. "Only the storm. Nothing else." They left, but suspicion remained, like a shadow that grew heavier each day. After the danger passed, the alien boy came out slowly, his body shaking. He looked at the father with wide, frightened eyes and whispered one word. "Sorry." The father froze, shocked that the boy understood enough to say this. He did not answer, but something inside him shifted again. Later that night, the children begged their father, "Let him stay, please. He is our friend now." The father did not reply, but he could not forget the boy's smile, nor his trembling voice. He sat by the fire, staring into the flames, torn between the safety of his family and the strange new bond growing under his roof. The alien boy sat quietly near the fire as well, his glowing eyes reflecting the light. For the first time, he felt something he thought he had lost forever. He felt that he belonged, not to his people, not to the past, but to this small family who gave him food, warmth, and kindness. Still, danger was near. The soldiers were searching for survivors of his kind, and whispers among neighbors were spreading. But within the shelter, a fragile bond had been born, a bond strong enough to challenge fear itself. The boy was no longer only a starving alien. He was becoming part of something greater. He was becoming part of a human family. The days passed. Slowly, but the alien boy, Rian, began to look stronger. His cheeks filled a little, his steps were less shaky, and his glowing eyes carried a faint light that was not only fear, but also trust. The children loved to sit with him, teaching him small words, sharing food, and even showing him how to draw shapes in the dirt with a stick. The mother often watched with quiet joy, while the father stayed cautious, never letting his guard down. One night, after the children had fallen asleep, the shelter was silent except for the sound of the fire. The boy sat close to the flames, staring into them as if he could see another world. The mother noticed his sad eyes and asked gently, "Do you remember your home?" The boy nodded slowly, then whispered broken words, his voice trembling. "Home, gone, fire, soldiers." The mother leaned closer, her heart heavy. The father looked up sharply. "What soldiers?" The boy pointed to the sky with his thin finger, then placed his hand on his chest. "They hunt me." His glowing eyes filled with tears, his voice weak. "I last only me." The father's breath caught. He realized in that moment that the boy was not just a starving child lost in ruins. He was the last survivor of something bigger. And if soldiers hunted him, then danger was already near. His first thought was fear. Fear for his family. Fear for his children. But when he looked at the boy trembling before the fire, his fear mixed with pity. The boy continued, speaking slowly in broken human words. "My people. They fight, but lose. Soldiers kill all, only me. Live." He pressed his small hand against his chest, where his heart beat fast. "They want secret inside me." The mother's eyes widened. "Secret? What secret?" The boy shook his head, unable to explain more, only whispering, "Power. They want." The fire crackled, filling the silence. The father clenched his jaw, his mind racing. If what the boy said was true, then he carried something valuable, something dangerous. And if soldiers were searching for him, then the family's choice to protect him could bring death to their door. The mother reached out, touching the boy's hand softly. "You are safe here," she whispered, though her voice trembled. The boy looked at her with wide, glowing eyes, as if trying to believe her words. Then, for the first time, he leaned against her shoulder, letting his tears fall freely. The father turned away, his heart torn apart. He wanted to throw the boy out to protect his family. But another voice inside him whispered that perhaps this child was their chance to show the world what it meant to be human. To protect, to forgive, to love, even when fear told them not to. The next morning, the boy woke before dawn. He sat outside the shelter, staring at the sky where faint lights moved in the distance. His small lips whispered words in his own language. Words of prayer or memory. The eldest child came quietly and sat beside him. "What are you saying?" The boy looked at him, his glowing eyes sad but calm. "Names of my people, so not forget." The child placed a hand on his shoulder. "We will remember with you." For the first time the boy smiled without fear, a fragile smile of belonging. But danger was close. That evening, strange sounds echoed across the valley, the low hum of engines, the flicker of red lights in the clouds. The father's face grew pale. "They are searching," he whispered. The boy's body stiffened, his glowing eyes wide with terror. He hid behind the mother, his thin hands clutching her clothes tightly. The family gathered near the door, the sound of the engines growing louder. The father loaded his old rifle, though he knew it would mean little against soldiers with machines. The mother held the boy close, whispering calming words. The children clung to each other, their young faces pale with fear. That night, the truth was clear. The boy was not only a starving child, he was the last of his people, carrying a secret that made him both valuable and hunted. And the family's choice to keep him had placed them all in the shadow of danger. Still, when the boy looked up at them with wide, glowing eyes filled with both fear and trust, the father knew there was no turning back. They had already chosen. And that choice bound them together. Whether it brought salvation or destruction, they would face it as one. The night was heavy with silence, but everyone inside the shelter felt the tension. The boy, Rian, sat close to the mother, his small body shaking, his glowing eyes wide with fear. Outside, the hum of engines grew louder, echoing across the ruined valley. Red lights moved through the mist like searching eyes, sweeping across broken walls and fallen trees. The father stood at the door, his old rifle in his hand, his heart pounding. He knew the weapon was useless against the hunters, but holding it gave him courage. The children pressed close to the fire, whispering softly, their faces pale. The mother tried to calm them, but her own fear was clear in her trembling hands. Suddenly, a sharp sound cut the night, a metallic roar as a small ship landed nearby. The ground shook, dust rising into the air, and then heavy boots struck the earth. Through the cracks of the window, the family saw them, soldiers in dark armor, their masks glowing with red lines, their weapons shining with cold light. They moved in silence, scanning every corner, every shadow, as if nothing could escape their sight. Rian covered his glowing eyes with both hands, tears slipping between his fingers. Here, he whispered in broken words. They find me. The mother hugged him close, whispering, quiet, please, stay quiet. But the boy's trembling body told them all how much danger they were in. The soldiers spread out, their voices sharp, speaking in a language mixed with commands and numbers. One of them pointed toward the shelter, and the father's blood ran cold. They were coming closer, step by step, like wolves circling prey. The father turned to his family, his voice low but steady. Listen to me. No one makes a sound, not one word. The children nodded quickly, their small hands gripping each other tightly. The mother pressed her lips against the boy's head, trying to calm his sobs. A loud knock shook the door, followed by a deep, metallic voice. Open now, by order of the patrol. The father froze, his heart racing. If he refused, they would break the door. If he obeyed, they might search and find the boy. There was no safe choice, only danger. He opened the door slowly, the rifle still in his hand, though lowered. The soldiers stood like shadows of iron, their masks hiding any sign of humanity. The leader stepped forward, his red visor glowing. We search, report of movement in this sector. The father forced calm into his voice. Only my family, nothing more. We have nothing here. The soldier's head tilted, scanning the room with cold precision. The boy stayed hidden in the corner, covered with a blanket, his glowing eyes pressed shut. The mother placed her body slightly in front of him, shielding him as best she could. The children sat stiffly by the fire, their eyes wide but silent. The soldier stepped closer, his boots echoing against the wooden floor. He paused near the fire, his mask turning slowly toward the corner where the boy was hiding. The mother's heart nearly stopped, her hands tightening on the blanket. The silence stretched like a knife, cutting through the air. Finally, the soldier turned away, his voice sharp, clear, nothing unusual. He motioned to the others, and they began to leave. The father's breath shook as relief washed over him. But he dared not move, not yet. Outside, the soldiers regrouped, their boots crunching on the wet ground. The hum of engines rose again as they climbed back into their ship. A final burst of red light swept across the shelter. Then the ship lifted into the sky, disappearing into the clouds. Inside, the family collapsed with relief. The children began to cry quietly. The mother held them close. Rian pulled the blanket from his face, tears streaming down his glowing cheeks. He whispered in a broken, trembling voice, "Safe, safe." Though his body still shook with fear, the father placed his rifle down slowly, his hands trembling. He looked at the boy, then at his wife, then at his children. His voice was low but firm. This was only the beginning. They will come again. They will not stop until they find him. The mother's eyes were full of both fear and determination. Then we must be ready. We must protect him. Rian looked at them, his glowing eyes filled with both terror and gratitude. In that moment, he knew they had chosen him fully, not just with food and shelter, but with their lives. The bond between them had grown into something unbreakable. But outside, the hunters had marked the land, and their search was far from over. The night after the soldiers left was not peaceful. Though the ship had gone, its shadow still remained inside the shelter. No one slept well. The children tossed in fear. The mother held them close. The boy shivered under his blanket, and the father sat awake with the rifle in his hands. Staring at the door, he knew the truth. The hunters would not stop. They had searched once. They would return again, stronger, more determined. The choice he made had tied his family's fate to the alien boy. And now there was no escape, only courage or surrender. The next morning, the boy tried to help. He carried small pieces of wood for the fire. He fetched water with the eldest child, his glowing eyes showing a quiet determination. He wanted to prove that he was not a burden, that he belonged. The mother smiled softly. But her heart was heavy. She could see how much he feared being abandoned again. The father watched him silently. In his heart, he was torn apart. Every instinct told him to protect his own children first. But when he looked at the boy's thin arms and trembling hands, he also saw his own children reflected in him. He whispered to himself, "If he dies, then what makes us different from them?" That evening, the danger returned. The low hum of engines once again rolled through the valley, the red lights sweeping across the ruins. The children clung to the mother, their eyes wide. The boy froze in terror, whispering, "They come, they come." The father stood tall, his jaw set. His rifle loaded, though he knew it could do little. This time the soldiers did not knock. They kicked the door open with a loud crash, the wood splintering, the fire shaking. The family cried out. The boy tried to hide, but the soldiers rushed inside with cold metal weapons raised. The leader's voice boomed. "Where is he, the last of them? Hand him over." The father stood between them and his family, his body like a wall. "There is no one here but us," he said firmly, though fear beat like thunder in his chest. The soldier stepped forward, pressing the weapon against his chest. "Do not lie. We know he is here. His signal is strong," the boy whimpered softly. The mother pulled him close under her arms, her body shielding him. The children clung to her tightly, whispering through their tears, "Don't take him. Don't take our friend." The father's heart pounded, but he did not move aside. For a moment, time stood still. The soldier's finger hovered near the trigger, the boy's glowing eyes filled with terror. The mother's arms shook as she tried to protect him. Then, with sudden courage, the father spoke, his voice like steel. "You will not take him. If you want him, you must go through me first." The soldiers hesitated, surprised at his defiance. He was only a man with an old rifle, yet his stance carried the weight of something greater, human courage. The mother stepped beside him, her eyes burning, and through me. The eldest child, though trembling, moved forward too. "And me," the youngest whispered softly, clutching the alien boy's hand. "And me too." The leader looked at them, his mask hiding any expression. For a long moment, silence filled the shelter. The only sound was the fire crackling and the heavy breathing of fear. Then he gave a sharp signal. The soldiers lowered their weapons. "Not today," he muttered, turning toward the door. "But we will return, and when we do, there will be no mercy." They left as quickly as they had come, the hum of engines fading into the distance once more. Inside, the family collapsed in exhaustion, their bodies shaking, their hearts pounding. The boy wept quietly, his glowing tears falling like drops of light. He clutched the father's hand, whispering in broken words, "You protect me, you." "Brave." The father looked at him, his eyes heavy with both fear and pride. "Yes," he said softly, "we protect you because you are ours now." The boy cried harder, But this time his tears carried not only fear, but also hope. The shelter was broken. The danger had grown. But the family had shown something the soldiers could not understand. Sacrifice and courage, the strength to stand together against the darkness. And in that strength, the alien boy found something he thought he had lost forever. He found the meaning of family. The night was calm after the soldiers left, but calm did not mean safe. The shelter's door was broken, the walls cracked, and the fire burned low, yet inside, the family and the alien boy sat together, closer than ever before. Their hearts still raced with fear, but also with a strange new strength. Rian, the alien boy, held the youngest child's hand tightly, as if letting go would mean losing everything. His glowing eyes were wet with tears, but there was a spark inside them now. A spark of life that had been almost gone when he was first found. He whispered softly, "Family," the word slow, broken, but filled with meaning. The mother's eyes filled with tears. She stroked his hair gently. "Yes, family." The father sat near the fire, his rifle resting against the wall. His face was tired, but his eyes carried determination. He knew the hunters would come again. They would not stop. But now he also knew something else. This boy was no longer just a stranger. He was part of them, and they would protect him no matter the cost. The days that followed were hard. The family worked together to repair the shelter, patching the walls, building a stronger door. Rian tried to help with every small task, carrying wood, fetching water, even gathering wild herbs the mother used for food. Though small and weak, he refused to sit idle, and his glowing eyes shone with pride whenever he was useful. At night, he sat with the children, telling them broken stories of his lost world. His words were simple, his voice soft, but the children listened with wonder. He spoke of blue rivers that shone like glass, of mountains taller than clouds, of stars that his people once traveled freely. Though his world was gone, he kept its memory alive, and in sharing it, he no longer felt alone. But danger was never far. Sometimes distant lights passed through the valley. Sometimes the hum of engines echoed in the sky. Each time the family hid in silence, holding the boy close, praying the hunters would pass. Each time fear returned, but so did courage. One evening, as the sun set, painting the ruined land in red and gold, Rian sat with the father outside the shelter. The boy's voice was quiet. "Why? You saved me?" The father looked at him for a long time, his face unreadable, then said softly, "Because you are a child. Because if we let you die, we would lose what makes us human." The boy's glowing eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of gratitude, not sorrow. That night, the hunters did not come. The sky was clear, the stars bright, and the family sat together near the fire. The children laughed, the mother sang a soft lullaby, and Rian listened, his heart full. For the first time since his world was destroyed, he felt peace. As he lay down to sleep, he whispered in broken words, "Humans, different humans, gave me hope." His small body relaxed, his breathing calm, his glowing eyes closing gently. The family watched him, their faces soft, their hearts heavy but proud. They knew tomorrow might bring danger, but tonight they had already won something greater than survival. They had won trust, they had won love, they had won hope. And in that fragile hope, the alien boy and the human family found strength. Strength to face the future together, no matter what darkness came. For in a broken world, it was not weapons or power that mattered most. It was the courage to protect, the sacrifice to stand, and the love to give shelter to the lost. And under the silent stars, the story of a starving alien boy and a human family was no longer about fear. It had become a story of hope reborn.